Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Freedom Property Podcast. We're delighted today to have Andy Henderson from Remax. He's an estate agent who's been gaining some fantastic results in our local city, Dundee. He's managed to sell over 14.25 million of property last year, became number one sales agent in Scotland, and has also been selected as Remax ambassador for Scotland. Some amazing achievements, really, in such a short period of time. So we're more well, kind of very keen to kind of hear more from Andy. Andy, welcome onto the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Kessa. Thanks a lot for having me. It's
Great.
exciting.
Well, we've known each other for a couple of years now. First kind of touch base in sort of lockdown when COVID was happening. But I suppose kind of for the viewers that maybe don't know you, it'd be good to kind of give a bit of a background to start off with.
Yeah, so my background originally was hospitality.
Okay.
My whole family are kind of in that business. So I worked at a hotel. I worked behind the bar at the hotel first, then I worked in the restaurant, and then I ended up being the manager of the hotel and kind of taking more kind of online bookings.com and stuff like that, dealing with all that kind of stuff. So I didn't have any prior experience in sales or estate agency or anything like that at all, which I think looking back probably helped me a lot because I never really went in and tried to be a salesman. I kind of focused on the customer and customer service, which is kind of what my business is wrapped around just now. So yeah, before this, no prior experience in sales. It was just customer service, customer experience, making sure that the customer is always good. And the thing is, if you do that, any job that you're in, you're always going to give yourself a good chance of being successful. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed my time working in the hospitality industry. Like I think you said that you just kind of started off there as well.
So I did, yeah.
So yeah, I think that sets you up to take on pretty much any job when you deal with the public on that level. Yeah, I think that it kind of sets you up in any way, any path that you want to go down. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really helped me a lot. It really did help me a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah, definitely kind of the challenges that you have in hospitality and all different types of hospitality jobs,
Yeah,
the sociable hours, dealing with
yeah,
complaints,
yeah.
all the different things involved.
It brings you out your shell a lot as well.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of when I was working at the hotel. There's a lot of younger girls, boys that came on board. They were still at school, really shy, and then by the time they'd left, or by the time 2 or 3 months down the line, they've come right out of their shell. They're
Yeah.
confident. They walk over to a table of 10. They can take an order. They can have a bit of banter with tables and things like that. And so it really does. It makes a massive difference personality-wise for people. So I would advise anyone when they're at school or coming out of school to get a job in hospitality, just to get an idea of how that kind of thing works, dealing with people. People skill is something that you can't really learn. You just have to do it. I think that's massive when it comes to business.
Yeah, I think that's a great point actually, to be honest. 'Cause even for me, I was so shy growing up. I used to work in a takeaway and I used to work in the kitchen because I didn't want to kind of be customer facing, and then just trying to get out of my comfort zone, and then eventually started speaking to kind of customers taking orders and stuff like that. And if it wasn't for that, I'd probably still be kind of quite, shy
Yeah,
and, not be able to do things like this now. So yeah, there's definitely kind of a lot of transferable skills.
yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah. So obviously quite a big change from that to kind of go to a state agency, and I suppose kind of at that time, it was probably COVID as well. What kind of made you think that you
Yeah,
wanted to kind of
so
become an estate
well,
agent?
actually, so the reason that I moved into this was because, well, not the reason, but one of the main factors was because the hotel actually was being sold. It got turned into flats.
Okay.
So I kind of had to get a new job anyway. Now, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd kind of always been interested in property. I had a property that I was renting out, which you obviously know about. So I'd always enjoyed property. I always liked the idea of property. I didn't think that it was actually just an advert that popped up on Facebook. It was like, something about becoming an estate agent. And I thought, you know what, kind of something that I'm passionate about mildly. I was never like as passionate as what I am just now, obviously, but back then I was mildly passionate about it. And I
Yeah.
thought, if I've got to get a new job, this could be something that I might enjoy. So I did it. I mean, the difficulty is then in this job you don't get paid a salary. It's like any business. When you run a business, you're not guaranteed any income. So it was a big jump going from being paid a salary every week getting your wage every week to not being paid anything until you make a sale. So it was a big jump, but I mean, it's the best thing I ever did, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Nice one. And when you was kind of looking at estate agency, then you obviously picked Remax. Why did you kind of pick that model over maybe kind of other estate agents?
Yeah, so I'm not scared to work hard. I mean, I used to start I used to work about 70 hours a week at the hotel, depending on what I had on and things like that. But it would be between 60 and 70 hours a week most weeks. So I knew that if I was willing to work that hard and be paid the same amount every week, then if I work for myself, the sky's the limit, because I'm willing to put in the hours to put money in somebody else's pocket. And surely I can do it for myself as well. So yeah, I kind of thought I want a job where the harder I work, the more money I make. Which is why this made sense, because the more houses you sell, the more money you make. The higher the value of the house, the higher the commission, the more money you make. So I don't know. It's just again, there's no ceiling on the level of income that you receive. So it kind of just made sense for me. I thought, if I do take the jump and it pays off, then great. If I don't, then I can always go and get another job and doing something else. But I mean, it did work. I think that, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I could never go back to being paid a salary. I could never go back to it. I'd much rather be full commission the way that it is for me just now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And Remax is really the only model, or at the time, Remax was the only model that allowed me to do something like that.
Yeah, it would be interesting to touch on that as well, because I know a lot of kind of other property investors, estate agents, and sometimes people kind of use estate agency as a way of kind of getting into property as well. There might be investors, but also have an estate agency on the side as well. The Remax model is quite different. Kind of, I think it's an American model, right? And we've seen kind of other American.
It's totally American. Yeah. So Remax is an American. Well, it's a North American company. They're the biggest real estate brand in the world. They sell the most houses worldwide. Sell the most houses globally. The nice thing about Remax as well is that, well, you already know this, but my plan is to move over to North America. I've ordered it previously, which we touched on after, I suppose. And I've always wanted to go back there. So working for Remax, it means that I can easily get a visa to go wherever I want in the world, really, because it's a global company. So yeah, that's kind of the benefit to the Remax model for me, is that I can go anywhere with it.
Yeah, and
yeah, originally they started obviously over in North America, and the model's exactly the same. I don't get given really any business from Remax. I go out, I get my own inquiries. That's why I'm so active on social media and doing videos and things like that, because at the end of the day, if I'm not generating leads, I'm not going to make any money. So I need to be constantly thinking about where I'm getting the next listing from. So yeah, it's totally the same system as what it is in America, which is good, because I'm incentivized to actually get the property sold. I'm getting paid a salary, so it's in the seller's best interest at the same time, because if I don't get the property sold, I'm not getting paid. I'm incentivized to actually get it on the market and get it sold for the highest price as well, because the higher price I get the seller, the more money I make. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a good point, that as well. So I like that you kind of put that there. And from what I've noticed, kind of from the Remax model as well, that it's very kind of personable. It's you, Andy, that's selling the property. It's not Remax, and every other kind of agent, has their own boards, and it's your name on the board, and it's you, that's selling the property, isn't it?
So for the seller, it's nice and easy. It's me from start to finish. They get my mobile number. If somebody phones me at 10 o'clock at night, I'll answer the phone if I'm awake. It's not like somebody goes around. It's not like I go around to do the valuation. Somebody else goes around to do the viewings. Somebody else handles the offers or books in the appointments, and somebody else negotiates for the seller. I do the valuation. I handle all the viewings. I get in all the offers, and I negotiate the highest price. So nothing's lost in the post between agent and seller, because everything's kept between the same two people all the time. So it's convenient for the seller. It's convenient for me. I always know what's going on between the seller. And yeah, it just means that, you know, the last thing that you want is to have to phone up an office and then the office have to say, oh well, that agent isn't in just now, so we'll pass you to somebody else, and then they don't know what's going on. So before you know it, you're waiting 2 or 3 days for an answer. Whereas if I've got a house on the market, somebody needs me to pick up the phone, they give me a phone, and we chat about it there and then, and it's answered like that. It's not like, yeah, there's no miscommunication, there's no delay. Things just get done because there's no miscommunication.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And then when you kind of first started out, you know, if I'm right, was it kind of through lockdown is when you kind of
It was.
became a stage? Yeah.
So the way it works with Remax is you pay your fee to join, you get your training, and then once you've finished your training, you then go out and try and get some business. For me, as soon as I finished my training, we went into a lockdown. Literally, the property market closed. So the first 4 months, I couldn't sell any property. It was impossible. I couldn't. So I worked on building my personal brand,
Right.
building my Facebook page. I did a lot of videos and things then, so that when the property market opened up again, I'd already had maybe 600 or 700 likes on my Facebook page in the 4 months. So I was already getting people inquiring about, oh, I'm thinking about selling. So for me, it was probably a blessing in disguise, actually, because if I'd have just been able to go and start selling property, I wouldn't have focused on building my personal brand or building
Right.
my Facebook page. Whereas because I couldn't sell any property, I didn't have anything else to do but post videos and articles and write blogs on LinkedIn and things like that. So it was probably a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to work on myself as in how I was going to go about my business. It allowed me to build my brand. It allowed me to learn all about the market properly. It allowed me to learn about my competition. And so that when the market opened, I was totally ready to go. And I didn't really make many mistakes because I'd learned everything I needed to learn when the market was closed for 4 months.
Yeah, well, you definitely hit down kind of the ground running, so it was great to kind of see. What made you market yourself the way you did, you know, because looking at a lot of other estate agents, you know, they don't do the videos, they don't do kind of all the blogs and stuff like that, and especially you're not even having that sort of previous experience as well. You know, what made you go down that road?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that you obviously you see a lot of content online. There's a lot of different people online that you'll probably follow that I do too. And one thing that they always talk about is content,
Yeah,
building your personal brand, because brand lasts forever. So for me, it was just watching all these guys online in the States, in North America, doing so well, and that's the kind of things that they do. They do videos, they build their personal brand. That's really the main thing that I try to focus on. And the nice thing about videos is people see your face, they hear your voice, so that when you're sitting in the house talking to them about getting a property on the market, they feel like they already know you because they've saw your face, they've heard your voice. I mean, it's happened to me so many times. I've gone into a valuation or a listing appointment, and the seller has said, "It's it's so strange. I feel like I already know you because I saw your videos online. I've
yeah,
heard you talking, and it just makes things a lot. It makes the seller feel a lot more comfortable. They know exactly who it is that's going to the house.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just for me, it just made the most sense. I know that a lot of agents will hand out flyers or any of that kind of thing. Now, I tried that once. I handed out flyers for about an hour, and I will never hand out another flyer. Never. So with flyers, you can get on average you'll hand out a flyer a minute, depending on how big the driveways are and things like that.
Yeah.
It'll take you 60 minutes to hand out 60 flyers. On Facebook, I could put a video on. I could put £50 behind the post, which it may cost you to hand out 500 flyers, and I
Yeah,
can in a day, less than a day, it can be in front of 50,000 people.
yeah, true.
So it's just makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, to market on Facebook rather than, I suppose, the old way. And not to say that you shouldn't fly as well, because there is agents that work under the Remax umbrella throughout Scotland that fly, and they do fairly well out of it. For me, that's just not the way I decided to go about it. I thought I would take the modern approach to it. Everyone's on social media nowadays, absolutely everyone. It's just the easiest way to target a large amount of people. Well, you're very proactive on social media as well, so you know kind of exactly the way it works. And the more consistent that you are with it, the more Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all this push your content out to more people. And yeah, it's just a snowball effect, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really is. Yeah. You mentioned about kind of watching people. Anybody in particular that, any of your
So
favorites?
I like Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, good.
A guy called Ryan Serhant that
Yeah.
he's an estate agent in America. Um, Grant Cardone, I suppose that's another kind of guy that's like that.
Yeah,
Who
I
else?
think three's good enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
all three great as well. I watched all three of them as well.
the main ones that I watch. There's a couple of smaller guys that actually work under Remax in the
Okay.
state that are pretty good. So yeah, I think it's just looking at all these. I mean, they're all super successful. So there's a lot that you can learn from that kind of thing.
Yeah, success leaves clues as well, doesn't it?
What
So.
about yourself? Who do you like? Who else do you like?
Yeah, Grant Cardone's kind of a big favorite of mine. Can be
Yeah,
quite controversial online, especially because his
yeah,
videos are very sort of grabby and
definitely.
stuff. But I really like his books in particular. But Gary Vaynerchuk as well, definitely kind of his content marketing is really kind of, made me kind of mold the way that I do things. Obviously through the podcast and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say probably those two are the main two. Yeah. Um, Right, Andy, kind of moving into kind of state agency then as well. So, when you're going out to a property, so let's say, somebody's kind of wanting to kind of appraise their property, how do you actually value a property? Because technically you're not a surveyor, how do you come up with the
Well,
valuation?
I mean, at the end of the day, the value that any estate agent gives the seller, whether that's me that goes out, whether it's a solicitor that goes out, whether it's another estate agent that goes out, regardless as to the value that the estate agent gives to the seller has no, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all
Yeah,
because I don't value the property, and I'm very honest to somebody as well. I work very closely with the same surveyor. I use the same guy to do just about every single one of my home reports.
right.
What I tend to do is give him a phone before I go around to the property. We have a chat about it, and I'll then have a good idea what. Now I know what a property is going to be worth anyway, just from looking at sold comparables in the area, what I've sold recently that's in the area, what maybe other people in the office have sold that's in the area. So I'll normally have a pretty good idea. But I mean, sold comparables is the kind of be all and end all because
Yeah,
that's what the surveyor will value the property on as well. So I'll just look at what's sold in the area. Now, sometimes that can be pretty tricky because, for example, I was at a house yesterday out towards Perth. It's right on. It's right across from the Horn, and there's no other property like it.
mm,
There's literally there's no comparables because there's nothing that's like it.
right.
So you then, at the end of the day, a property is worth what somebody's willing to pay for
True.
it. But something like that, it's very difficult to value. And I was very honest with them. I said, look, this is extremely difficult to value. Sometimes I'll have a look around the property. I'll then phone the surveyor after. I'll have a chat with the surveyor after about what I've seen at the property. And then we'll come to a kind of agreement or we'll come to a decision on where the value lies. Other times I'll know before I go out. Other times I'll get back to them after I've seen it. Just
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That yeah, and just probably works kind of same for property investors, especially when they're doing the refinances. Ultimately, comes down to comparables.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think especially just now, what I'm what we're seeing obviously is a lot of properties going quite a fair amount above market value or above home report value.
yeah,
Uh, so it's really about my job isn't to value the property. That's not what my job as an estate agent is. My job as an estate agent is to ensure that I get the seller the maximum amount over that home report value as possible. That's my job. My job isn't to value a property. It's to get the maximum price over value that we can. So in terms of value, I'll leave it to the surveyor. And I'll be pushing to get as much as we can get over home report value, which last year I sold 150,000 over home report value, which
wow,
is pretty scary. So I think it's what I'll normally do just now as well when I'm going out to property is explain to them what the home report value may be, and then explain to them kind of where I can see the value landing when we go on the market, as in what the sale price will be, because the home report value and the sale price just now are two totally different numbers in certain areas for certain properties. So it's important that the seller knows that as well.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. That you'd mentioned kind of how obviously it's your job to kind of get the maximum price for your seller. What sort of things do you do? Like what sort of advice are you giving to the sellers? Particularly into the property, and then obviously we can talk about negotiating afterwards as
Yeah,
well.
so for a start, it's important the property is presented in the best way possible.
Okay.
So things like if a wall needs to be touched up, yeah, okay, it's maybe not going to add any value painting a wall. However, it makes a big difference in the presentation of the property, and that's what's going to push the property up higher when it comes to somebody putting in an offer, because they then don't have to come in and paint the wall. So, like I said, it's not necessarily going to add any value on paper. However, it's going to make somebody put in a higher offer. So things like painting the walls, if there's like grout in the shower is normally a big one as well. Just making sure that the property is nice and clean, it smells good, the garden's tidy, it's got good curb appeal. If the front door needs painted, paint the front door, because that can make a house look totally different.
Yeah.
Just touching up the front door. So things like that. Obviously, the biggest ones are kitchens and bathrooms. If the kitchen's modern, the bathroom's modern. That's the main thing that normally a viewer or a buyer will tend to look for: kitchen, bathroom, windows, boiler. But decor recently, especially with how fast the market's moving and how high things are going over value, it's important that the property is presented well. Just even like pictures on the wall, staged, not cluttered. That it makes a huge difference just now. Something that is the same home report value and is empty could maybe go 4,000 or 5,000 over home report value, compared to something that's staged very well. If it's kind of quirky inside and it looks really cool, the decor's nice. It could not on paper add value, but when somebody's putting it off, they could offer 10 grand more, and that's just decor and staging, because people's perception of something when they walk in and it's beautifully staged is a lot higher than if it's sitting empty and the walls are all plain white kind of thing, nothing on the walls. Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that recently, is that properties that are staged well are really tending to sell a lot faster and for a lot more than a property that isn't. And they could be the same value property.
Yeah. And you've seen a lot of companies kind of pop up nowadays as well that actually offer staging as well, don't you?
There is, yeah, there is. There's a few different companies just now that are doing it, and it's definitely something that I would recommend if the property is empty. It's unbelievable the amount of times that you walk into, or I'm doing a viewing at a property and we show them the lounge, and the lounge looks quite small. Actually, the lounge isn't small. The lounge is 4.5 by 5 meters. The lounge is actually really big, but because there's no furniture in it, it looks small because they don't have a perception of how big things are. It's difficult for a buyer to envision furniture in a place. So they automatically walk in, they say, this bedroom's quite small. Because there's not a bed or bedside tables in to give them a gauge for how much floor space is left, they automatically think that it's small. I think that it is important to, it's obviously, it can if you've got an empty property and you want to stage it, it can cost you money, but in the long run, you're going to get that money back and more on top of the price.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, okay. And then when it comes to sort of negotiating price as well, then so what sort of value would you add at that point?
So that's probably where I gain the most value is negotiating. Now it's obviously a touchy subject, because at the end of the day, I work for the seller, so I'm looking to get the seller the maximum sale price, regardless as to if there's one offer or there's 10 offers. I'm going to be pushing to get the most that I can, because at the end of the day, the more money I get to sell, the more money I put in my pocket. So it's in my best interest to get the buyer up as high as possible. Now, you'll know yourself as well, the first offer is never the highest offer. So, it's just about finding out, for me, it's about finding out the buyer's situation before they come out and view the property. Finding out if they're a first-time buyer, are they moving from down south, are they downsizing, are they upsizing? Once you then know the buyer's situation, you've then got an idea of how much money they've got to offer over value. If somebody is moving from London, for example, you then know that they've got a lot of money to offer over value. So you then know that when you get them in the property, you can stretch them a bit, and you can really push on the fact that they may have more money to offer over. So I then know in my head that when I'm negotiating, I can really push it up as high as possible. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking to get the highest price for the seller, and because that builds my reputation as well. And obviously that's what I've got to do to generate more business. So important to find out the situation of the viewer before they view, find out exactly what they're looking for in a property. If they say to me, I'm looking for a large master bedroom and a large garden, that's some things that I'll really press on. If the house has got a large master bedroom and a large garden, when we're walking around the house, I'm showing the house, I'll really press on the fact that this house has got that, because that's exactly what they're looking for. It means that when you're having the chat about if they want to put in an offer, you can then explain the master bedroom is a great size, there's a very large garden, and it's just more points to push on to give you leverage to negotiate a higher price. Obviously, the end goal is to have 2 or 3 interested buyers and have them negotiate and have them bid for the property. The more offers you've got, the more leverage you've got to jam the price up at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I suppose that's kind of where your value comes in compared to some of the online estate agents where you're actually just speaking direct to the seller. People are just bidding offers, online, and the seller ultimately doesn't know what is a good offer and what isn't ultimately as well.
100%. So for me, meeting the buyer and meeting the seller, so I obviously know the seller, I know what the seller's requirements are. We'll have a chat about the figure that we're hoping to get, so that I can then negotiate on the seller's behalf in the property. If somebody then says to me after the viewing, you know what, I think I do fancy putting in an offer. Okay, then if you were, so one thing that I'll always ask after the viewing is, can you see yourself living in the property? If they say yes, we can see ourselves, or yes, I can see myself living in the property, great. If you were to put in an offer, hypothetically, where would your offer be at? Where would you come in at? That's then your foot in the door to then ask to get some offers.
Right.
It's always giving them the option to put in an offer and that on the table to have that discussion. The property is the best place to negotiate because they obviously are emotionally connected to the property because they've decided to put in an offer. So me compared to somebody that maybe the seller does the viewings or there's a viewing agent. Now the viewing agent for a lot of these properties, they'll never have been in the property before the viewings start. They've never met the seller. They don't know anything about the home report.
Yeah.
So how can they sell something that they've never been in before or they don't know anything about? For me, I study the home report, I study the area, I know how to sell a property. I'm not just a tour guide that says, here's the kitchen, here's the bathroom, or just opens the front door and says, have a look.
Yeah.
I walk around the property, I sell the property, I find out about the buyer, I press on the points that they're looking for, and we get the price up as high as we can because at the end of the day, that's my job.
Yeah, fantastic to hear. You'd mentioned kind of earlier on there, that different sellers coming from different places. What sort of trends are you seeing in your local area, or maybe all over Scotland just now? One thing that you said there, and I've heard myself as well, that there's kind of buyers moving up from down south as well. So, what have you seen in the market over the last 2 years?
There's been a lot of people moving from down south,
Okay.
moving back to Scotland. I mean, obviously, I can only speak on Dundee and surrounding areas, but there's been a lot of people move back to Dundee or Broadferry or Forfar or Airlith. I mean, sold properties all over the place.
Yeah.
I think the main reason is they maybe moved down south years ago, and because of COVID and things, they now realise that they want to be closer to their family. So that's one reason. Another reason is that because everything's now kind of online, people work from home. There's a lot more people that work from home. So they don't have to actually be living in the city that they work in. They can be living remotely. They could live in Spain if they want to live in Spain. So a lot of people are now using that to their advantage. They're moving maybe closer to family, or they're moving somewhere cheaper. And Dundee's the cheapest city in Scotland to live in. So there's a lot of people that maybe they previously worked in Edinburgh or Glasgow and they had to buy there or they had to rent there. Now they don't have to be there because they don't have to go into the office every day. They can work remotely, they can work from home. So they're now moving to Dundee because it's the cheaper option, and they're working from home. So I think that's another reason, on top of the fact that people are moving back because family and they want to be close to their family because of the whole COVID thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's interesting to get your insight on that. And what sort of issues are you having in the property market just now? For us as property investors, definitely the lack of stock is a big
Yeah.
issue. But for you as an estate agent, what issues are you kind of coming across just
Well,
now?
to be honest, lack of stock is definitely an issue. Now, the reason being, there's obviously not a lot of properties coming on the market. There's so many people that are looking for properties. There's a lot of people in rented accommodation. But the big issue just now is there's a lot of people wanting to move and they want to sell the property. However, they don't want to go on the market because they don't want to sell their property and then not find somewhere to move into. So it's kind of a cycle that we're stuck in just now where people don't want to take the jump to go on the market in case they don't find anything to move into. So a lot of the people that are viewing properties just now have still got properties to sell, or not a lot, there's a lot more people this year certainly than there was last year still with properties to sell because they don't want to put the property on the market and then not find something and be homeless. They don't want their property to sell and then not have anything to move into. It's because there's now a lot of people looking for that forever home. I suppose there always is, but now more than ever because COVID and things, people want an extra bedroom, they want a bigger garden, they don't want semi-detached, they don't want to be detached. So yeah, I mean the stock is definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I suppose it's kind of vicious circle then, isn't it? Because if nobody wants to if there's not enough properties to buy, then nobody's going to want to sell, are they?
Yeah. So the thing is, if everyone who wanted to sell or wanted to move actually just put the property on the market, it would be okay because there would be more properties on the market for people to choose from. Obviously, in a perfect world, that would be the ideal situation for everyone that wants to sell to go on the market. There's then more stock for everyone to choose from. However, people just don't want to take that risk. Totally understandable. Totally understandable.
Yeah, and even on the investor side of things, when you're looking at sort of predominantly investor type properties, there's kind of a lack of stock there as well. I don't know if investors just holding on to these properties or what's happening
So
there.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of investors. There's actually a lot of people looking from Glasgow, Edinburgh, London who want to invest in Dundee just now, which is always a good sign. I think that we've talked about it previously between the two of us that I think the house price growth in Dundee is massive. There's so much room for growth. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, potentially, the house prices are really going to shoot up. So people want to take advantage of that. So yeah, there's a lot of investors holding on because they want to take advantage of the prices going up over the next, 5, 10, possibly years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. A question I get asked quite often, and I'm probably not the best person to answer it. This would probably be your area of expertise. Is like, so if you've looking to sell your property and you're looking to buy another one, what's the best position to be in? Sell your property first, or be in a chain? What sort of advice do you give to clients there?
So just now, because there's so much competition in the market, it's definitely best for you to have your property sold. The difficulty lies where if it's a popular property, say you put an offer in, say one person's subject to sale, one person's chain free, they've sold. They both put in the same offer. The seller's going to go with the one that's chain free because it's less hassle. They don't have to wait on a property being sold. So that's the difficulty we're seeing just now. Definitely better to have your property under offer at least, and then you can go and look for the next one because you've more chance of getting an offer accepted because your property is already under offer compared to somebody whose property isn't even on the market yet. So certainly my advice to a seller, if we were to have two offers, even I've actually had a seller accept a lower offer that's been because they've been under offer compared to somebody who offered higher but hadn't had the property on the market yet. But my advice normally to a seller would be to accept the one that's obviously chain free because they don't have to wait about, unless they're not in a rush. If they're not in a rush at all, it's sometimes more beneficial for them to accept the one who's still in a chain. It just totally depends on the seller's circumstance.
Yeah, it's interesting. And apart from people just kind of wanting to move house, or maybe even people wanting to move house, what sort of kind of when people come into you to sell their properties, what's their sort of specific pain points? Apart from sort of cost and stuff like, if you take it out of the equation, why predominantly people sort of selling their properties, and why they're kind of looking to you to kind of help them?
I mean, it's different case between it just totally depends on the person. Sometimes they've just got engaged and they're planning kids, need an extra bedroom. For a lot of people, they want a bigger garden. or they wanted a garden. So what we were seeing when the market kind of first opened up, and still now as well, because it's taken people this much time to get a property because things have been going so crazy recently. So definitely people wanting an extra bedroom for a home office. We hear that all the time because people are now working from home. There could be a couple that are in a property and they're both working from home, so they don't want to be on top of each other all the time, so they need 2 extra bedrooms. So you see that a lot. An extra bedroom for one office is another one. Maybe having kids, so they need another bedroom. A bigger garden, because people obviously spent a lot of time during lockdown in the garden. So that's another big one.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the market always moves on. People always need to move, regardless of situation. Maybe people want to upgrade into a better area. They want to be closer to family.
Yeah, that's a good point. For property investors that are maybe looking to kind of, buy a property, add value, and then sell it on, with the likes of yourselves, what sort of properties are you finding that are in most demand just now? Or maybe kind of somebody coming to you looking for a bit of advice there.
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
So there's a lot of first-time buyers in the market just now. Yeah, there's a lot of first-time buyers in the market, and the difficulty for them just now is that they can't get anything because a first-time buyer can't afford to go £5,000-10,000 over value because
Yeah.
they don't save up for that. They save up for their deposit and that's it. But there's probably a lack of flats coming on, as you'll see yourself. I mean, I've been looking for 8 or 9 months for a property, and there's just a lack of flats coming on, a lack of 4-bedroom houses as well. Like I say, people are looking for that extra bedroom, that bigger garden. There's definitely a lack of 4-bed detached houses, especially in and around the Broughty Ferry area. Everyone seems to want a 4-bedroom house in Broughty Ferry or Monteith. So there's definitely a lack of them going about. I think all in all over, there's just a shortage. There's a shortage all over. I couldn't really say a certain specific house type, because everyone's kind of taking that move up the ladder. So it's just kind of mixed, really. But certainly 4-bed houses in Broughty Ferry and Monteith, there's a big shortage of them.
Yeah, of course. No, that's a good point. I think you work with house builders as well. What sort of struggles have they had kind of over the last few years, especially when it comes to selling properties?
Yeah, so obviously we've seen the cost of everything go up recently. I mean, inflation is the highest it's just about ever been, and I mean, I think that figure is very low compared to the actual inflation figure. So obviously material costs have gone up dramatically. So even getting material for builders was an issue because a lot of people were on furlough at the council. Getting planning applications and things in was a difficulty, so things were delayed from that side. And I suppose only in September last year did everyone at the council, or a lot of people at the council, come back off furlough. So that was an issue for a long time. Stock was an issue, as in getting supply, getting material. The price of material going up. So what originally was in a builder's budget for X material is now nearly doubled. So obviously that the houses then have to be put up in value, which is fine anyway, because house prices have gone up since then anyway.
Yeah.
But that was really the issue for builders, was getting the material and getting it at an okay price for them to still profit on the build. And the fact that some of the council were furloughed, so it was difficult to get things pushed through planning. And a lot of the time with these builds, the council have to come out and check. There's certain checkpoints the council have to come out and okay before you can move on to the next section of the build. So that caused an issue as well. It wasn't like they can just keep going with the build, because the council have to come out and check certain points. And that was hard to get at one point.
Yeah, it's been interesting times, hasn't it? So you mentioned, Andy, already, you're a property investor yourself as well, and it's been challenging, obviously, even for you, working in the property market, trying to get property deals. What else have you kind of been investing in over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so watches, funnily enough,
Okay.
about that slightly. I think the nice thing about watches is there's nothing else that you can buy and wear and enjoy and then sell after 6 months, a year, 5 years for a higher price than what you bought it for. So I mean, I've kind of dabbled in and out of that. I think you get the enjoyment from wearing it, and you get the profit when you sell it as well, which is cool. So I've invested in watches recently, crypto, stocks, looked at some NFTs and things. The thing is, nowadays there's that many different things that you can invest in. It's picking which one suits you the best.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
you mentioned watches there, which is interesting because I would never think of watches as an investment because
yeah,
I would kind of view it as a depreciating asset. But
yeah.
what's driving up the demand and the price
Well, it's
there?
just like anything. I mean, inflation obviously went up. The prices of everything have went up. The same as watches. Now, it depends on obviously which brand of watch you buy. If you are careful in the brands that you buy, you'll certainly make. I mean, the watches that I've got just now have gone up like 34% since I bought them. One of them in kind of like 3 months went up like 12, 14%.
Right.
At one point, a certain watch was going up 6% a month. There's nothing else that, unless you pick the right coin, the right crypto coin, there's nothing else that can go up that fast. So I think it's just interesting that you can buy. I mean, it's like a classic car almost.
Yeah.
The only thing is, if you drive a classic car, sometimes the value will stagnate. Whereas with a watch, you can wear it every day, and it still goes up in value. So I just think that's interesting. I certainly want to keep growing the collection that I've got because I enjoy it. I like wearing them. I think that I just think they're nice to have. At the same time, you can make money on them as well, which is cool. But I mean, there's certain models recently that have gone up from like 30,000 or 24,000 to like 50,000, which is like double in value over the past like year and a half, 2 years, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really interesting to think about. Yeah, absolutely. Because I never even knew that market was even out there. So,
Yeah.
and
If
was that something that you just?
you pick
Sorry.
the right brand, I mean, Rolex is I like Rolex, so they tend to go up, and you never lose money on a Rolex anyway. But if you pick the right kind of models, they will consistently go up in value. And there's nothing else that you can buy, wear, enjoy, and then sell in 6 months, 5 months. I mean, the first one that I bought, I sold it like 2 months later, and I made money on it. The second one I bought, I sold it about a year later, and I made like 600, 700 pounds on it. And then the two that I've got just now, I'm going to keep them forever anyway. But yeah, they've gone up. The two of them together have gone up like 34%. So it's like 5, 6 grand that I've made on them in the time that I've had them, which is these two only about 6 months. So where else can you make that in 6 months or 6 or 8 months?
Yeah, it is really interesting. And is that something that you kind of just started as a hobby and then just realized that actually there was more money to be made, or
Well,
did you do
yeah,
that on
I didn't
purpose?
realise to the extent that they would go up in value.
Right.
I realised that I would never lose money on them, but it wasn't until I started kind of looking more into it that I realised that it's actually the best investment that I've made over the past couple of years,
Yeah, it's
which
interesting,
is
isn't it?
weird to think about.
Absolutely no. That's really interesting. That okay, great. Um, kind of going back to kind of Remax and your stats there. Obviously, you kind of sold a hell of a lot of properties last year, and you're now kind of ambassador for Scotland. What does that mean for you? What does that entail?
So the throughout Remax Scotland are a part of Remax Europe. They're under the Remax Europe umbrella. Each country or each region in Europe has an ambassador, has one ambassador. So I'm the Remax ambassador for Scotland. There's a Remax ambassador for Ireland, Remax ambassador for France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Turkey, everywhere. So I think there's about 30 odd, 32 ambassadors throughout Europe. And we essentially we all get together on Zoom calls. We discuss best practice ideas. You get the chance to go to conventions, so I'll probably go to Switzerland fairly soon for a convention. So yeah, you just kind of get to. You're almost the role model for the brand Remax Scotland. So I'll essentially learn from. We all learn from each other. All the ambassadors
Yep.
learn from each other, and then I then push that down the Remax Scotland branch, which is good. I mean, I do like. So Remax every couple of weeks they've got maybe between 5 and 15 new agents that start throughout Scotland. or every month. So I go on and do like a Q&A session for the new agents that are coming through. So yeah, I mean it's good. It's good. The Remax Europe network is really good to be involved in, because I'm now one of the top performers in Europe. Um, you kind of get a lot more. You take on more roles, as in I've done other podcasts for Remax Europe for the network in April, the start of April, or can't remember, maybe the end of April. They're flying out a videographer to follow me about for 2 days, and they want to do like a day in the life of a top performer. So they're going to follow me about for 2 days. So that'll be really cool as well, and that will look really good on social media and things. So yeah, I mean it's all good fun. I absolutely love my job. I wouldn't have, if I could pick one job to do, this would be it. So I'm just kind of enjoying it. I'm enjoying the process, and taking each day as it comes, and learning every day as well. You can never stop learning.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and I think your passion kind of shines through ultimately, which is great to see. Where do you kind of see the trends kind of going, moving forward now? As we're recording this, we're in February 2022. How do you see the sort of the property market and the sort of the current trends and the way things are going to be going forward?
So I think over as we get into the warmer months, there'll certainly be more properties that come on the market. March normally is one of the busier months for properties coming on, so we normally see March, April, May being fairly busy. Obviously, June, July slows down slightly because of school holidays, or end of June, July, start August kind of slows down just with school holidays, and then September tends to pick up again. November, September, October, okay. November, December obviously starts to die down again. So we're going to come into probably one of the busier spells of the year. So I think more properties are coming as it gets warmer. Anyway, people prefer to put the property on when the garden looks good and things like that. So we probably will see more properties coming on. There's certainly the demand for properties is still going to be high, so there'll still be plenty of buyers there. So we'll probably will still see sale prices a lot higher than home report value, which, if you're trying to find something, isn't obviously the news that you want to hear. However, I think that that's going to be the case for the next few years, until this mad period kind of slows down, which who knows? I mean, who knows when that's going to be? But I think certainly over the next few months, we should start to see more properties come to the market. So people should get more of a selection. Then again, that being said, when somebody's selling a property, they need to buy one as well. So that means that more buyers are going to be coming into the market also.
Yeah.
So that's the supply and demand issue. There's still going to be that same issue with stock probably.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And you mentioned there kind of like, the market being crazy. Is there any sort of sign of that slowing down at all?
It's difficult to tell because obviously at different points in the year the market will react different. So if you can't really compare where we're at just now to what it was like in May last year, because obviously it was really buoyant then, and there was more properties coming on. But certainly, because there's not a lot of stock coming on, it's just a case of supply and demand. Because the demand for properties outweighs the supply, there's more competition in the market and things are going for a higher price. When that will stop, I really don't have a clue. Nobody knows. That's just the game that we do.
Absolutely. Just got to take one day at a time, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Andy, that's been excellent. We have one question actually. Somebody's asked, do Remax cover commercial property or is it just residential?
So you need a license to sell commercial property. So I can't, and I don't sell commercial property. You need a license to do that. Normally, it's the surveyors that sell commercial property. So DM Hall sell commercial property. I think Shepherds do. Normally, it's the surveyors that have licenses to sell commercial property. It's something that I would probably look into do at some point. When that is, I'm not sure. But it's definitely something that I would like to get involved in. I just can't at the moment because I've not got a license for it.
Yeah, could be a business opportunity for you for the future.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Absolutely. Where do you see yourself sort of, moving now kind of into the future as well as an estate agent, Andy?
So I've kind of got a plan over the next 5 years, which we've chatted about privately as well. So obviously, like I said earlier, I want to move back to North America, whether that's somewhere in Canada, one of the bigger cities in Canada, one of the bigger cities in America. I'm not sure. I have to kind of wait and see. However, I want to build my own property portfolio up over the next kind of 5 years so that when I do eventually move away, don't have to. I'm not under pressure to make excellent sales. I want to be able to move over and enjoy my time there rather than having to worry about constantly trying to make a sale, because I think that it'll happen a lot more naturally if I do that rather than
Yeah.
have to. Because, like I said, I don't get paid a salary, and with my job, I can move anywhere in the world. However, I'm not guaranteed any money when I move. So it's important that I have income coming in. So if I build my own portfolio up over the next kind of 5 years, then once I move away, I'll not have to worry so much about getting business straight away. I can kind of let it happen. More
Yeah.
stressful.
I think you're absolutely right there. I can even kind of see that in myself. As I've kind of grown my property portfolio, it's worked hand in hand even with my own business as well. So, yeah, that's a great point there. And it's been fantastic to have you on today. I've really enjoyed kind of seeing your growth over the last 2 years. Even for me, it's been really inspirational because you're so much younger than me. So, it's great to kind of see how you've done, especially from that first time when we talked in lockdown to where you've
Yeah.
kind of come to now. It's just fantastic. For other people, that maybe don't follow you at the moment, where are they best to find you online and how can they connect with
So,
you?
you can get me on Facebook. My business page is just Andy Henderson, Remax Estate Agent. Instagram as well. It's my tag is at Andy Henderson Remax. If you search Andy Henderson Remax, I'll come up anyway. I post on YouTube. It's just really the stuff that I post on Facebook that I post on YouTube. LinkedIn, Andy Henderson. You'll find me on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, that's really the 3 or the 4 main platforms that I tend to use. So yeah, I'd love to catch up with you all sometime. So get in touch, definitely.
Excellent. Right, Andy, it's been a pleasure. And everybody, thanks for listening today. Hope you enjoy
Thanks
the
a
rest
lot.
of your day.
Cheers.